It is game over for Squid Game. After 3 seasons, the show has ended, so let's talk about it because the ending is dividing people. In this video, I'll tell you what happens at the end, what it actually means, and what that insane cameo says about what's coming next. Because it looks like this isn't the end of Squid Game at all. And for some brighter news, I'll tell you why all might not be as hopeless as you think from this quite depressing 3rd season. So let's get into it, but before we begin, let me know what you thought of Season 3 in a comment below, and hit that subscribe button whilst you're down there to join the club. I'm MadMorph, this is my movie club where I talk about movies and TV that I watch, and you can also find my free audiobooks for sleep and my gaming channel in the description. This is Squid Game Ending Explained. Squid Game is a show about a sick game being played on a secret island where 456 players take part in versions of kid games with a deadly twist. The last person standing wins 45.6 billion won, which is about $33 million, or 20% of what Jeff Bezos earns every single day. And yes, that's relevant because it's kind of the point. Remember, the people on this show are desperate, the ones that are entering the Squid Game, that is. They are considered low down in society, deep in debt, and with no other hope in their life but to enter the games. That's how player 456 ended up here. He won in Season 1 after being in debt from horse racing. His daughter was leaving to the United States and he wanted money to pay for his mother's hospital bills. But after he wins, he vows to take down the games and re-enters in Season 2 to try to destroy them from the inside, but it would end up destroying him. Here's what happened. The ending sees player 456 caring for the baby of player 222, who has taken its mother's number after she met her end. Yes, they actually entered a baby into the Squid Game, a decision made by the rich VIPs who are watching and placing bets. Gross. And also amongst the players in the final are the baby's father, player 333, player 100, and player 123 Min Soo. As far as the finalists go, I think the finalists for this second Squid Game are quite a weak selection and fairly uninspiring. They killed off everyone's favourites really early in this 6-episode season, leaving us no one to really root for other than 456 and the baby. Player 333 can absolutely get in the bin at this point for killing player 120. In order to stop them from voting to end the game, they reveal to the finalists that for this last game they will get to pick who is bumped off and who makes it to the end. The players that have the majority all agree they're just going to vote off player 456 and the baby as well as Min Soo and guarantee themselves a win. So they vote to continue rather than to leave and to end the game and split the money. And then In-ho, the frontman, gives player 456, Gi-hun, an out. He arranges a secret meeting revealing himself to him and that he tricked him all through Season 2. But now he wants to help him, or does he? He gives him a knife and he says if he kills all of the other contestants in their sleep, then the final game will not take place. It can't be played with only 2, so Gi-hun and the baby will be able to leave together and split the winnings. It is revealed that this is how the frontman won his Squid Game because we know he's a former winner. He was given the same option by the old guy who used to run the games before he died in Season 1, and he did take the offer, killing all his fellow contestants. We can assume that this showed his ruthless nature to the games, and he was recruited as the frontman after doing so. If player 456 did this, would he perhaps be the next frontman? But player 456 only gets as far as holding the knife to player 100's neck, before seeing a vision of player 67 from Squid Game 1. Remember her, everyone's favourite people's princess, a total badass, and a fan favourite who died in that same way. She was killed in her sleep before the finale. And she tells player 456, you are not that kind of person. And he's unable to do it. On the one hand, I get why he feels unable to do this, but considering what comes next and him knowing what finales are like in this game, I think we all wished he would have. Especially as he already ended someone during the hide and seek for vengeance who was far less deserving than player 100 or the rest of these old guys. But that's not the message, and we the audience aren't the only ones shocked. It also shocks the frontman. His refusal is the mirror opposite of what In-ho did to win the games, and it shows him that he still believes there is another way. The frontman seems almost emotional, somewhat moved that he didn't do it, surprised if anything. It is also a sort of slap in the face from 456 to In-ho, which says, I'm better than you. You were weak and you took the easy way out. The final game is played in 3 rounds. In each round, all the remaining players are high up in the air on a platform. When they push the button on the floor, they have 15 minutes to eliminate at least one person from the platform so they fall to their death, and when the timer ends, they move to the next and repeat the process. They have to do this for 3 platforms, and whoever is left alive and standing on the 3rd and final platform when the timer counts down will be the winners and split the money. Sound confusing? Yes, it kind of is, to be honest, and they probably could have come up with something better and less convoluted, but you'll see why they did it this way with what happens next. Platform 1. The men vote that they want to vote the baby off in the first round. Crazy, but feel that player 456 would defend it violently, so they instead turn their attention to Min-soo, who is seen as the weakest. Player 333, the baby's father, pushes him off using a pole. The round ends, they move to the next platform. So far so good for this gang. The whole time, the VIPs who represent the super rich and enjoy watching the show and placing bets on it are watching from a viewing platform. How annoying were those guys? But on the second platform, the infighting starts with player 456 and the baby's father 333 ending up teaming up to fight the old men who turn on each other. It's interesting to note that the old group are represented by middle-aged old men. No women made it to the end who actually represent this kind of would-be elite, the would-be rich with class mobility. And during this game on the second platform, all the old men end up over the edge, meaning for the final platform, there is only player 456, the baby, and the baby's father. But for the game to end, one of them is going to have to go off the edge once it starts. And this is the point where player 333 becomes the villain. He won't let 456 across. He insists he gives him the baby and is planning to leave him behind so that he's killed and then drop the baby off the edge for an easy win. He's been driven mad by paranoia and greed, accusing 456 of planning to do the same. Is this how he won the games before? And of even having an odd relationship with the mother of the child, the previous player 222. He's lost it. So Gi-hun gives him the baby and then leaps across the platform with a knife and they fight until they both fall off the edge with 456 hanging on and 333 falling to his death. The problem is they never hit the button to start the round, so now the only way that the game ends is for either the baby or 456 to go over the edge. Otherwise they'll both be killed. Side note, player 333 turning on his own child is representative of how some parents will put themselves first over their own children for their greed. Not literally sacrificing them off of the edge of a giant platform during some weird game on a secret island, but metaphorically. There's plenty of examples of working too hard and neglecting them to earn money within the system, or even all the way to sort of parents of child stars and people being pushed to get better jobs to earn more. But back to the finale. Here's what's really important in this scene. The super rich VIPs are watching and they say stuff like, "Oh well, it just ended already. What's taking so long? Has anyone ever won twice?" They can't comprehend that there would be any delay or thought put into this decision. They have the mentality of course you just throw the baby off the edge and win and take the money. He's won. They talk about him winning like it's a foregone conclusion. They represent the billionaires, the super rich, the elite of our reality who are totally out of touch with morals and common decency in the rest of the world. But there is still some good in the world, and it's not as easy as that for 456, as he stares at them through the sort of blacked-off viewing screen. He can't see them, but he knows they're there. One of them says, "What are you waiting for? Just ended already," to the other VIPs, and one says back, "Some goodbyes take time." But 456 isn't saying goodbye to the baby before dropping it. He's staring in the direction of the cameras in the viewing platform, and I think this is a message to the frontman. It's a silent stare and a goodbye for him and his way of saying, "I'm not like you." But then 456 turns around and looks directly into the camera, breaking the fourth wall essentially and talking directly to us, the audience. This goodbye that takes some time is now a goodbye to us. And his goodbye message is this: we are not horses, we are humans. Humans are. And without finishing his sentence, he lets himself fall backwards and off the edge to his end, sacrificing himself for the baby, player 222, the final survivor and winner of Squid Game. But what does it mean? Why did 456 sacrifice himself, and what comes next? We get to see the aftermath of this, so stay tuned. Player 456 sacrificing himself for the baby is a symbol of hope and an act of defiance against the games and the system as a whole. The system that always makes you want more, that has players choosing greed over compassion. We've watched as players have gone mad and been driven to do terrible things to survive and to get further, to themselves and to their fellow humans. And in this final act, player 456 is finally saying what he's wanted to say all along: enough. I will not harm this baby, something entirely defenseless for my own gain and survival. Most people would consider the act of ending a defenseless baby for money and survival to be the ultimate spiral into greed, to have completely lost all of one's morals, mind, and decency, an unspeakable act. Yet somehow on this show, we are to marvel at 456 for not doing so. How many of those 456 players would have done it? How many wouldn't have? I bet you can think of some of the characters that have appeared in the show that would have sacrificed themselves instead of the baby. But do you think more people would sacrifice the baby or not? Because I think the point of the show and what we've been shown and seen is that quite a lot of people would. And that is the point of the show, how the system itself of capitalism, of gain, of survival and greed, of people being made to feel desperate, do desperate things, how we turn humans into horses. And that is why what 456 does is so out of the ordinary, stunning the VIPs into silence who haven't shut up for the entire series with their god-awful acting, and maybe even moves the frontman to a change of heart. It is a symbol of hope, and we know this because while this is all going on, we've got the parallel story of Guard 11, who has been helping player 246 escape the island behind the scenes. She was actually sat watching this take place with a gun under her chin, ready to end it, but she decides not to when she sees 456's decision. It convinces her that there is still good left in this world, and she doesn't pull the trigger, choosing to continue her life, which we see leads her to stay alive and go to China to try to reunite with her daughter. Already his selfless act is having ripples which continue on through the lives of others. We also see her visit player 246 at work, whose daughter is now better. So there are some light points to this series, but honestly I think most people think it is just super depressing and sad because they weren't really interested in these subplots and side characters. It all feels a little bit hopeless because we lost Gi-hun and all of our favourites. The side plot of the detective, 246 and Guard 11 were kind of secondary to those in the games. Elsewhere, the winning baby is left with the frontman's brother, the detective who was trying to find the island the whole time. He's left with a credit card, which we can assume has all of the winnings on it for its care and its future. Dude spent like 2 seasons on a boat just to find the island, shout why at his brother, and then leave before it blows up and be left holding the baby. Absolute waste of a plot and time in my opinion. So the island that the Korean Squid Games are held on is blown up. It's gone, self-destructed by the front man and evacuated by everyone on it, with 456's body going bye-bye when it does. But here's what happens next. In-ho goes to LA to deliver player 456's things and his winnings to his estranged daughter, letting her know that he's passed away. But as he's leaving, driving through LA, he sees down an alleyway 2 people playing that exact same game that is used to lure people and to test them before putting them in Squid Game. And this time the salesperson is played by Cate Blanchett. And they have this long, knowing look at one another. So what does it mean? This is a nod to the next series of Squid Game, which is going to take place in the United States, and it's being made by David Fincher. It's due to start filming this year. The idea originally was thought that it was just going to be an American remake of the South Korean show, which would have been really stupid. Then it became a movie, and now it's back to being a TV show, but of its own, a sort of spin-off of sorts of the American version. And this ending absolutely proves it, because we're kind of seeing it crossing over already with Cate Blanchett playing the salesperson. However, I'm not sure the way that In-ho looks at her is to say that he's happy or proud or anything positive. I think what 456 did has changed the frontman. It's given him a change of heart, and he honestly looks kind of sad to see the game spread. However, don't get it twisted, this is not going to be, or at least it shouldn't be according to the law, the first time it's taken place in another country. In one of the previous seasons, one of the VIPs even says something like, the Koreans always have the best games, implying that this is a global game already. Do you think the actions of 456 have changed something in In-ho, and might he even show up in the American version in the future to be the one that tries to take it down? Did he prove to him that there are still good people in the world, that not all is lost, and that humans are not horses? So what was the point, and what is the show about? Of course, it's a criticism of capitalism, especially unchecked capitalism, that much is obvious. It's got those elements of capitalism and class wrapped into one that South Korean TV shows and movies love to be about. But I also think it's worth pointing out how the contestants' actions and journeys through Squid Game mirror the journeys of the rich. We see them start out as normal people, desperate, so desperate they took slaps to the face in their attempts to win a small amount of money, which is what leads them to the Squid Game. We see them get closer and closer to the end and do worse and worse things. If they had voted to end the game towards the end when there wasn't that many of them, there would have been more than enough for them all to pay off their debts and maybe even have some left over. But because of the system that they had been through, the game, they were continuing to be willing to step on and over their fellow humans for a chance at more. And by the end, for the finale, it's not a kind of random coincidence or a celebration that they're dressed in suits. It represents their rising in class rank, their social mobility, having graduated from the uniforms to black suits with status. They get fed better, they have this big lavish meal before the finale. It's not a reward, it is to show that they have moved up in class and in sort of status and richness. They represent going from normal folk to ones who are lost in the source of money. It's a kind of perfect example of how any normal person, us mere mortals, can't wrap our heads around when is enough for the super rich. People say it all the time, why do they need to keep taking and making more from others, more from the planet, doing immoral, unsafe and unethical things to make more dollars? Like a dragon hoarding gold that can never get enough. That is the commentary on capitalism and the society that we live in. Nobody gets to 1 million and stops. By the time they get to the first million, they then want 10. To any normal person, imagine having $1 billion right now and doing anything but living your best life and helping everyone around you. But it's the journey to the billion that corrupts, or to the million, or to even smaller amounts for certain people. It chips away at their compassion and their humanity. People that started desperate and wanting just enough to survive soon are willing to do anything to have it all. And it is because of their environment, it is because of what we see them go through in the Squid Game, and the Squid Game represents our society, how it keeps people desperate and turns them into monsters. But at the same time, it's showing us that you can be like 456, you can be like 120 and some of the other characters on this show. You can buck the trend, and you can live with kindness, compassion, and with self-sacrifice. Honestly, for me, this season was hit and miss. The episode where they play hide and seek and the jump rope episode were great games, and Squid Game really excels when it focuses on the Squid Game, and there wasn't enough of that for me in season 2 and 3, which make up the entirety of the second set of games. Let's be real, people are always going to remember red light, green light, the merry-go-round, jump rope. They'll remember characters like Thanos, player 222, how friendships were ripped apart in marbles. Was any death in season 3 as impactful as the Uni moment on the merry-go-round? Player 120's death was sad but frustrating, and I feel like player 222's death was almost representative of how we don't take care of the ill and how they're left behind by society. She busts her ankle in hide and seek, so she literally wouldn't be able to jump in the jump rope game, and decides to end herself to stop 456 from coming back for her. You have to say there's something in that about representing people with disabilities and the way they're treated by society. I just think season 2 and 3 let itself get sidetracked by plots that nobody really cared about, that meant nothing and went nowhere. They weren't giving us backstory really to the characters that we cared about. And honestly, it's kind of sad to think that this is all a consequence of the pressure on the writer to follow up the first Squid Game because it was such a success. It was only meant to be one series, but Netflix wanted more because it was the biggest show ever. The writer said he was so stressed coming up with these seasons that his teeth started to fall out. As for the USA spin-off, I love David Fincher, so it will at least look amazing, but the hype is definitely slightly diminished after 2 and 3. I'm sure it will still be huge. But why was Cate Blanchett playing a classic Korean game in the Los Angeles alleyways and not a classic American game? That doesn't fill me with hope. I partly think this is because they actually need the audience to make that connection and don't trust them to if it's any other game. To say, yes, she's part of Squid Game in another country. This isn't just a random woman beating up a homeless guy in an alleyway. But if you think about it story-wise, why would the American Squid Game be playing a classic Korean game? Hopefully the games on the actual show are more cultural. What do Americans even play as kids? Let me know in a comment. I guess I'll hold out hope for the British version. However, the truth is nobody quite does commentary on social class and capitalism like South Korean cinema, from Parasite to Pyramid Game. I worry that the American version will be diluted in some way, the same way that the Netflix reality shows Squid Game or Mr. Beast's Squid Game completely missed the social commentary part and the criticism of capitalism and just jumped straight to being disgusting little knockoffs capitalizing on the show's capitalist nature without ever knocking capitalism. Oh. There's another Korean show with a similar sideways glance at everything from capitalism and social class mobility called The 8 Show that is also on Netflix if you want to go and watch something else. I'd recommend checking that out next. Maybe everyone can give recommendations in the comments for similar shows to Squid Game for people looking for their next fix. And that is Squid Game Explained. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to subscribe before you go out and check one of those videos on the screen for some more Ending Explained with me. Let me know what you thought of this show in a comment and what you'd like to see me talk about next, and I will see you in the next one. As always, check out my links below or go to madmorph.com for my gaming channel or my podcast Down to Sleep, where I read books to you to help you get a good night's rest. Until next time, thanks for watching and good night.